as the final college football poll is below us right here. Ty and I have kind of been through some turmoil. We've experienced high distress in Starkville, Mississippi, and now we have the transfer portal opening up as of Monday. We now have NIL as a factor of offseason and recruiting for college football. So Ty and I are going to kind of rant a little bit, see if this is a factor that is ruining college football or may ruin college football in the future. What needs to happen? What things need to be put in place to maybe fix that and prevent it from ruining the sport we so love, my favorite sport for sure. But I'm going to kind of give you a backstory about transfer portal and NIL in terms of Mississippi State University, Ty, and you know just as well as I do about this story. Now, if I miss anything, you can kind of add in, but I'm going to try to say everything one time, and then we'll kind of talk about it. So, if you go back last year in your 2024 recruiting class, you get what I like to think a 5-star product out of Maryland, quarterback Michael Van Buren. He turns into a 4-star after committing to Mississippi State University.
That's the Mississippi State effect right
Yeah,
there.
yeah, he
You can't
flips
tell
his
me it's not
commitment
true.
from Oregon to Mississippi State University. Now, let's go into the season time. Let's think about it. You got a new head coach, Jeff Lebby, was at Ole Miss, was at Oklahoma, had the 6th-ranked offense at Oklahoma, had a top 5 offense at Ole Miss. This guy knows or should know how to coach offense. So why doesn't he do it here? Blake Shapen is your starting quarterback. Transfer from Baylor, gets injured. You bring in Michael Van Buren, a true freshman, a guy you thought would not see the field because you had Blake Shapen, and that's the guy you wanted to kind of drive the helm. And this guy goes 1-7 on the year. He throws for 1,886 yards, 11 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, and a 54.7% completion to add to it. We're talking about the transfer portal, Ty. I like to think Jeff Lebby's the guy here. We saw what he can do with personnel and old teams. Oklahoma, for example. Ole Miss, for example. When the personnel's there, Jeff Lebby can coach. He doesn't have the personnel at State. Mike Leach kind of messes up a little bit in terms of recruiting, which is fine. RIP. Wish he was still here, but God rest his soul. Transfer portal opens up Monday, Ty. Mississippi State has 20 to 25 players in the first day leave to go elsewhere. Because you end the season 2-10, nobody wants to say. How is a coach like Jeff Lebby, who has been successful with the personnel, going to be successful at a new location when all your personnel leaves? Michael Van Buren announces he's transferring from Mississippi State. Doesn't get offered the money he wants. You got NFL agents with college football players now trying to get him money so that their agents can make money. His transfer portal and NIL ruining college football, Ty. How do you fix it? And what's the miracle syrup Mississippi State needs to drink in order to become a contender once again?
I will keep it now. I will just kind of back up State. We did have a lot of guys enter the portal. Not all of them were, significant losses. Van Buren, obviously, you don't really want to lose him. We're in talks with Jackson Arnold right now from Oklahoma. Lebby recruited him, so that could kind of back up losing Van Buren. We lost Kevin Coleman today, who I believe was, I think, 5th or 6th in the SEC in total receiving. So those are honestly, and then we lost Mario Craver, who's a young upcoming freshman. So like those 3 hurt big time. Now the other ones were, we also lost, I will say, Bryce Pollock too. That he was a good defensive back. So we've lost a lot of guys, but kind of the main meat is we've lost 4. So now just exploring not just Mississippi State, and I'll kind of give my solution. I don't think it's state that has to do anything because state can't do state or or a team like we could just say Iowa State or a team like Nebraska or any team. They can't do anything about it. It's the NCAA that has to do stuff about it. We have a system right now, and I know you agree with me, Connor. We have a system that is the wild, wild west. Lane Kiffin, although he coaches at Ole Miss, I think he's a great coach, and a lot of the stuff that he talks about with the portal, even though they do well in the portal, I agree with him. He's compared it to the wild, wild west. He says there needs to be some kind of system and some kind of structure, and he is exactly right. We have no structure in this sport. I mean, you have it's tough even we just talk about state, but just imagine being a fan of a Go 5 program, a Kent State fan, or imagine being a Miami, Ohio fan or a Colorado State fan. As soon as those guys are good, the Power 4 programs are gonna they're just like buzzards coming in, getting meat off the ground. That's exactly what they are. They just come in and swoop down, grab the meat, and leave, and there's nothing the group of 5 teams can do. So the thing with structure, I've had my own kind of thoughts about it. I've talked with this a lot with my dad. I've talked about this a lot with Connor. Um, there's we have to first you have to fix the NIL situation. Um, it's just crazy. I mean, Mario Craver for State, for example, and even Michael Van Buren. Uh, those were guys that were asking for way too much money than they probably needed to. Uh, some reports they were asking near $1 million. It starts with the agents are absolutely ruining this. The agents that these kids hire, okay, or that they sign to work for them, they go in and they demand this money and in some cases, like I saw a Florida linebacker today, demanded starting time. He even demanded that he played every third down, and he demanded like $750,000. These agents come in with these kids and just demand the most outlandish bullcrap you have ever heard of. So I think it's honestly a lot to blame is the agents and their ego, and I think a lot to blame is the kids' ego. But the NCAA, like we just said in the comments, the NCAA is a clown show. If you're going to continue to let this go on, you see how it has affected the sport, and especially your Group of 5 programs. But smaller programs like State is a smaller program in a Power 5 school or Power 4 conference, just haven't had much success. So I think what you have to do with NIL, I think you have to find some sort of salary cap thing where you for each conference, each team has a certain salary cap, and you can only give that much, or you can only have that much to give out to your football team, and that goes with every sport, not just football. But we're on the topic of football right now, so I think you have to establish some sort of salary cap system that makes teams and makes coaches and makes whoever's involved with it makes them think about, hey, we only have so much money to give, we need to be careful. But that's just one part. The second part is you have to fix the transfer portal. The transfer portal is the second part of this whole entire thing. Used to, you had to sit out a year when you transferred from one school to another. So if I were to transfer from Auburn to South Alabama, I would have to sit out a year and then I get to play the next year. I think we bring something like that back, but I think you dial it down a bit where you go your first time transfer is free and your second transfer and every other transfer until then you have to sit out a year. So if you think about it, if some kid is thinking about, hey, I want to transfer to my second school, well, they have to think about A, I have to sit out a year. B, when schools go after said kid, they have to think about, well, this guy's not going to be able to play this year, so maybe we shouldn't give as much money since we are on a salary cap system and we only have so much to give. Then when you establish both of those systems, it'll eventually go together and you'll have teams starting to think about what they do with their money and kids starting to think about what's best for them is to stay, because overall you would probably with your team gain more if you're in a situation. I can understand if you rode the bench and you just need to transfer down. I can understand that. But if you've popped at a really good school and there's no reason to transfer, kids will start to think about, hey, I can make more money here than I would if I transfer and I have to sit a year, because the teams are going to have to start thinking. So I think you have to fix the NIL to where it is a cap space type thing. Because if you're gonna operate like the big boys in the NFL, you got to start adapting. That's how you got to start doing it that way. So I think you go to a cap space thing with NIL, and I think you leave the first transfer free and leave the second transfer and the third and so on and so forth. You have to sit out a year after that. I think the combination of that will help teams like we talked about with State, will help anybody else.
I'm going to put this into perspective and I'm going to dissect it. Let's look at pro sports, okay? Let's take NIL, for example. We can talk about a salary cap. That is your method of fixing what we think is ruining college football, okay? Salary cap issue. Let's talk about it. We cannot compare it to an NBA salary cap or an MLB salary cap because that is not a true salary cap. They can spend however much the owners are willing and coaches are willing to take out of their pockets, and then luxury taxes and stuff is enforced in the MLB. So that is not a true salary cap. But if we look at the NFL and stay well rooted with football, teams that are utilizing the salary cap the most efficiently are teams that are able to perform the best in the NFL. Now, we know, especially this year, that spending the most money in college football and NFL will not always guarantee you a playoff spot or a 10-win season or whatever that standard is you want to meet. You look at the New Orleans Saints, negative $77 million in cap space. No, they're not even going to make the playoffs this year. You look at a team like Ole Miss, spent top 3 teams, spent the most money in the portal in NIL, didn't make the playoffs. Spending the most money is not going to automatically give you a bid to make the postseason. If you set up a cap, and learn how to utilize it like we have seen in NFL and other sports, maybe play a little money ball with it, if you will, you might be able to build a great team. You might be able to find a way to spend the money how it's supposed to be, because now you have this huge market of players just leaving, like our best players, for example, who we thought our best offensive player was Michael Van Buren. Let's treat the transfer portal as a free agent / trading type deal. When you trade a player, when a player goes to a location, to a different location, the other team has to give up something in order to acquire that said player. That player is not able to go to that team just willy-nilly, right? Something has to be given up. If you're a free agent, you have to pay that player to come to your team. Okay? But if we talk about like needed players, like players of necessity that teams desire, these are not players that are just signing one-offs every year. These are players that sign contracts, you stay with the team, eventually probably will get traded towards the end of their contract. If you take that to transfer portal, guys that are wanting to leave every year, that does not happen in the NFL. You sign contracts. If now we are treating college athletes like NFL players, heck, we're giving them NFL agents to represent them. Start signing contracts. Start signing contracts to play college football.
I didn't even mention that. Yeah, I think you're exactly right, and I won't talk about it as much, but I just want to say, yeah, you're exactly right. If they're going to be basically paid employees of the university, give them contracts. That's one way to make everything simple. That was well said. I'm glad you said that because I didn't say that, and I've thought about that as well. I'm glad you said that, Connor.
Because, like I said earlier, even if you trade a player, say for example, Mississippi State traded Kevin Coleman to Florida State, for example, you just trade him to Florida State. Okay, Florida State would then have to give us something for our player. Now, that is not going to happen in college football. But the fact that a team has to lose something or a player has to lose something in order to go to a different team 100 times in a college football season or a college football career, there should be something that is lost. You should not be able to hop from one place to one place with no consequence, with no loss, with no anything, and just be fine. There should be something that has to come of loss for you to go to a different team multiple times in a season, in a career.
And what is lost is what I discussed. Both teams would lose. I love the go Noles. Both teams would lose. Or not even both. Honestly, okay. If somebody we'll just say Kevin Coleman transfers to Florida State. Okay, State loses a guy, right? But I think it honestly, straight up, it's not a situation where everybody wins immediately because the player has to sit. Okay, the team doesn't get that player. The player also has a double negative because he's not going to get paid that much if he's not going to play. And the team has also got to consider they're putting a pickle because, hey, this is a really good player, but also he's going to sit. So it puts them in a bad situation. You just have to make people think more instead of just going willy-nilly and letting them do whatever they want. Because right now, that's what the system is set up like. Anybody can do anything. And it's absolutely ridiculous. If you showed this to just say somebody doesn't watch football anymore, but they watched football 20 years ago like it was life and death. If you showed them this now, oh my God. I mean, this is nowhere near what I grew up and you grew up and Nate grew up watching. And it's interesting too, with Nate being a former college player at the University of Arizona. What I would love to see what he thinks about this, and maybe when we get him on before the prayer segment, we can ask him. But it's absolutely just insane how the numbers of the money that's being thrown around just like it's freaking nothing. I mean, it is absolutely insane. I don't understand it. There's no structure to it. Like Lane Kiffin has said before, it's a wild, wild west. I think what I said and what Connor said would absolutely fix what we have right now in college football. And if it doesn't get fixed, and good Lord knows the NCAA doesn't want to fix diddly squat. But if it doesn't get fixed, you're not going to see an immediate effect on the sport, but it's going to be a slow burn, and it's going to continue to get worse and worse and worse until we taper off. And that's going to be it. But there has to be some sort of system to it.
I would be interested to see if teams would be willing to pay players to go to their schools and give the university that player came from money to add to their pot for NIL. It's just
that would be
hypothetical. It would be an interesting
that would be the only way that they would be able to trade.
Because because you said that Group of 5 schools are of a loss when this happens, because power schools are like vultures clawing down and eating on the meat, like you said earlier.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
this would give Group of 5 teams a chance or a thought, or we're getting more money from this to maybe invest in another player that we desire. But I am interested. You're interested. Let's see what a formal collegiate athlete has to say about this. And I'm going to bring him on right now before we get into a prayer segment. Nate Nesi, What do you have to say about all this?
I remember when we did this segment on college football players being paid about a year ago, right before it became, for certain and set in stone that the NIL and these players potentially making money off their name, image, and likeness, and I was all for it. But then there were a lot of things and factors again that I didn't look at that have played a big part. Again, I was more so less so just happy for these players to finally, just be able to make some money, bring some money home, again, because the NFL, not everybody's going to make it in the NFL, but if you can make some money and put some money away to take care of your family and so forth, yeah. Yeah, what it has done is that it has changed the trajectory in the landscape of college and has tainted it big time. Now, we're talking about, Ty, when you were saying that whole ordeal with a player being negotiating, being playing on every third down and stuff, I was disgusted because these are still amateurs. They're not pros. And a
Mm-hmm.
lot of these agents, these quote unquote agents, they're looking at opportunity just for them to bank money off of these college players. So when we thought about the NIL, we thought about just, again, players making their money and so forth. It has tainted the game because it has gotten out of control. And it's not that the NCAA, no, they're not going to fix it. I hate to say this, but you're going to need Congress or some people to pass laws right now in regards to the fact that these players being able to negotiate X amount of dollars when they don't even play professional football. Again, most of them, they're going to school just to see who will pay them more money.
Mm-hmm.
Where's the credibility? Where is the credibility?
There's no credibility. There's no credibility.
Exactly.
Then on top
Exactly.
of that, we look at the transfer portal. This portal, everybody now, oh, we're gonna hop in the transfer portal because, oh, they're not doing me right. Oh, I can't touch the field. Where's your competitiveness at? Where is the grit and the grind? Where is that and again for the game? Everybody is so quick to want to, again, throw in the towel and whatnot. But that's a testament of the lack of hard work and dedication to your craft that you have. It
Well, I
shows a lot
think
about
it's yeah.
too.
I think it's just honestly, it's the mindset. Hey, here's the thing: if you want to blame somebody other than the NC2A, if you want to blame somebody, blame the agents because the agents are the absolute pieces of work that are ruining the sport. They get in these college kids' heads and they make them think, "Oh, you're worth this. You're worth this." When in reality, no, you're not. You're not at all. It's the same thing, and I won't say much about Van Buren because I respect Michael Van Buren to an extent. I think he came in a year and he handled business. I thought he played well. He wasn't the greatest when it comes to accuracy and stuff, but I thought he had a bright future. I still think he does. But in my opinion, if the rumors are true about us getting Jackson Arnold, I think what you had just said, Nate, it shows a lack of competitiveness. You don't want to stay at this school because A, you think you're worth more money than you're asking for, and B, you are definitely scared of what's coming to you. Because Jackson Arnold is not a guy you want to. I mean, is not some Rudy Poo quarterback.
Right.
He is a good quarterback that was a former 5-star that's going to come in and he's going to battle for the quarterback job. I think exactly what you said about just the lack of competitiveness is right. You hit it right on. You hit the nail right on the head. I think that's exactly right. It's sad, honestly, what's happening with the sport. I don't understand. It's just I could go on a rant about this for a long time. I'm not going to for the sake of the show and the time on the show. It is just overall, it's just upsetting. Nate, I do want to get your just if something like this occurred back when you were at the University of Arizona and there was this whole system, how would you approach it as a young college kid wanting to make it which you did, make it to the NFL, but also get your degree? How would you have approached this situation if it happened when you were at Arizona?
Well, one of the things that played a big part is my mom, my parents. My mom is a teacher, so of course you guys know my mom cared about the degree, more than football. She wanted me to succeed in football, but my parents cared more about the degree because the degree will take you much further in life and whatnot. Because after it's going to come a time where you got to hang those cleats up and you're not going to be a football player. You got to be an everyday Joe type of guy. You got to have your own career and so forth and whatnot. This whole ordeal with NIL, don't get me wrong, I would love to have had the opportunity to, again, help my parents out even more, at that time. But at that same time, I love the game of football. And see, when I was at Arizona, we competed. We may have not won a lot of games. We may not won the 10, 11 games that, we set out to do, but we competed. We loved the game. We appreciated the game. We appreciated the moments and opportunities the game had afforded us. And that's something that these young men are lacking now. Everything is handed to them. There's nothing that they have to work for. And that's what sucks. There's a saying that was in our locker room, or in our weight room. Hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. The talent that we see now, they don't want to work hard.